Hello and welcome to Strategy and Soul. This is the podcast for ambitious female entrepreneurs that want to talk more about blending spirituality with strategy for business growth. I'm your host, Danikah Rose Creative, and I'm so excited to bring to you guests weekly from all over the world, as well as solo episodes and snack pod episodes to feed your soul in less than 10 minutes. Hello and welcome to another episode of Strategy and Soul, the podcast for ambitious female entrepreneurs. Today, I am very excited. As some of you do know, my background in events management is just one of the next level things that I had dabbled in over the years for about 10 years, in fact. So speaking with a guest today, her name is Tanya Lopez, and you'll be able to see her Instagram handle if you're watching on YouTube. It's also at hi, meaning hello. Hi, Tanya Lopez. There's a dot in between that as well. And we're going to talk today about creation of events, the alchemy of what it looks like to bring it all to fruition and how that can actually impact on your business and amplify you. So I'm going to throw it over to Tanya now to do her intro and tell us her location and a bit about what she does for business.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to chat about events with you. I'm joining you from Bali, Indonesia, where I live and run my business. And my business is working with business owners and brands in the personal growth space to create and deliver transformational events and experiences that help grow their business, their brand, and their community.
It's so nice. And I wanted to really highlight that difference between someone, like we've said in our pre-chat, when we produce events and we're coming up with events, there's all this strategy that goes into it. So being an events strategist and an experience creator, you're like the designer of these experiences. So how does that role differentiate between someone that's implementing their own events and someone like you that's assisting with that process?
Yeah, definitely. So since COVID and there being, a huge transition in live events, I shifted from doing full scale event production and execution all over the world. I've organized events in 15 plus countries, I would say, to now focusing more on strategy and consulting to business owners in the personal growth space, like I mentioned. And what I love about strategy is for me, it can make all the difference in your event. So it's getting really, really clear up front and really strategic in terms of, and really intentional, which is huge for me, of why am I doing this event? Why am I doing this event? What are the goals that I have in my business? What are the goals that I have with my community? How do I align those goals? What is the vision? What is the experience that I want to take people through? And how do I work backwards, reverse engineer that vision, that experience into my planning, into the execution of my event? So it's really taking a big step back and looking at the overall vision, the overall big picture, and how events fit into your larger, plan, your larger product suite, for example, because the way that I like to approach events is to make sure that they're really supporting your business goals, right? Events are a strategic place within your business that helps feed and fuel other parts of your business, your community in particularly. So yeah, that's the strategy part, as opposed to, planning. What I see people do, especially when they're newer to events, is they kind of jump right into the planning. Without having a strategy, right? Without having a roadmap, without having a budget, even without having a long-term vision, an idea of how they want to scale and grow in the first few years. And so as opposed to kind of like jumping in and just hacking it together and seeing where it goes and seeing if you're profitable, I work with my clients to be really smart and strategic in terms of getting clear on what that vision is. What are the goals for the event, for their business? How does the event support those business goals? Who exactly is this for? What is the experience you want to create and deliver, etc. Right? So to create that big strategy, that big picture vision, which then they can go execute against, whether that's themselves or if they hire an event producer. But the difference of what you're going to see just jumping in and planning an event, or even hiring someone that doesn't have a strategy to follow and is just kind of hacking it all together, versus here's our strategy, here's our vision, here's what I want you to execute against, is like night and day. So hopefully that gives a bit of an overview of the difference between those things.
Yeah. And I can just imagine right now, anyone that is interested in running an event, they're like writing all of those amazing questions down, because that's the real juice that Tanya's already like pumped into this podcast episode. If you're there and you're wondering, are events for me? Are they not? All of those questions that she's just asked are completely relevant and very important, if not necessary. And as someone that runs retreats myself for ambitious female entrepreneurs who are women, that's my target market. And we're running them locally. Why? Because they fit into my offer suite for my networking events. They're face-to-face. They add a bonus to women that are signed on for my one-on-one 6-month packages to come along to the retreat. So how does it all fit in? Like a puzzle. And if we don't have all of those pieces together,
Yes.
I'm just like even reflecting that back from what Tanya has said, it doesn't actually make sense to just go, I'm going to pick a date and I would like some women to show up, and this is the experience that I'm going to offer roughly, and then just grabbing some extra people. And I think I want to segue just a little bit to something that's more high end. Like if you were going to get a done with you service as opposed to a done for you service, what do you think the advantages of having that level of support? And I'm going to be very transparent here. Obviously, Tanya is selling this. So hello, hit her up if you want to ask more specific questions in her DMs or mine, because we both do strategy. But it's still nice to kind of get a gauge on what exactly that means when you're trying to push a plan out there and you actually want to run an event and do it really well. What does support mean to someone?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that question. So I have a few different levels that I support people at, depending where they're at in their visit, they're in their business and in their events. But the benefit, I would say, to having that high level strategic support is basically what I mentioned before. You have a roadmap. You have a roadmap. You have some reassurance that you're not just hacking things together. One of the biggest, I would say, challenges of people organizing events is there's a perceived and actual high level of uncertainty, high level of risk, high level of financial exposure at times. And so what I do is I help them minimize that. I help them minimize the risk. I help them basically have help in terms of what is the right size event for how many people, where, how often, what do I sell, what are my price points, how long is it, how do I market it, how is my messaging, basically the key thing, like the way that we would approach our business in terms of all these things I just mentioned. Events are no different. It's interesting for me to see how many parallels there are in event strategy and business strategy. It's quite similar, but quite different at the same time. And so I help sift through and sort all of that so that you're reducing that level of risk and uncertainty. And basically you have someone that has, 10 years of experience that has made all of the mistakes and has scaled a single event, to $1 million in revenue, has led events for Mind Valley and world-class events all over the world, so that you can tap into that experience, which for me is incredibly, incredibly valuable, right? In terms of just, shortening your timeline and giving you, taking out years of, mistakes and trial and error and lost time, energy, resources that you can get there on your own. But, it took me like 10 years to understand everything I do now around events through my experience. So this allows clients to just kind of tap into that existing experience.
And even the frequency of belief behind an event, because there's always something to be said about taking aligned action. And I love to speak into that topic, but removing all the fluff If you're not going to be able to energetically back your event because you're not confident on the event management side of things while the event is happening, or the sales side of things while you're trying to explain the messaging behind your offer, and you may or may not be confident on even figuring out who to delegate certain tasks to. There's a lot of things that go into events that people can be very unaware of. And even helping my own clients, like I've had one of my clients recently that organized a photo shoot day, and there was one really integral part that kind of got missed, and it wasn't for lack of trying. It was just because people that haven't run events before might not be aware. And I'm like, right, well, there needs to be some food. There's dietary requirements to consider. There's this massive list that we can create around each separate element. How are they getting fed? What does their transport look like? Who's feeding them? Where is the budget coming from for that? So there are also those extra questions that are like, it's almost like there's layers to an event, and you've got to kind of unpack it one by one in a very masculine way so that the feminine can just go off and just pop off into this, vision that you've wanted to manifest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the masculine and feminine events is a really beautiful place where these two can merge. And to the point that you said earlier is like the energetics around it. Something that I think is very important is the mindset of seeing events as something that can be a revenue driver in your business. Because I hear, especially when it comes to retreats, I hear people say like, oh, retreats, it's like, you can't really make money off of them, but I do it because I love it. And I'm like, you got it wrong. Like, you can make money off of retreats, right? So I love to think of myself as like an expander in that way, in terms of, I've scaled one event to $1 million in revenue. And I think it's important to differentiate between events that are enrollment events and made to sell something, and events that are actually created because they want to deliver an experience. They want to deliver a transformation, right? And even with those transformational events, you can absolutely be profitable. And it's important to go into it knowing that that's a possibility and absolutely accessible to you. And so I have a lot of experience that I can bring to the table in terms of how clients have done that.
Yeah. And even that, like the thing that instantly came to my mind was the retreat itself could be a bonus or an upsell, or it's actually their first point of contact. And any event, really, it doesn't even need to be retreats. Like, this could actually be something that upsells them into the next higher ticket program, or even something that's an add-on. For example, you might have a $150 program that's evergreen, and that person comes to your event, and then you're like, oh, hang on a second, this can actually serve you. This can help you. So the way I see it is, if I'm running these events, they're profitable. I'm able to outsource and delegate other tasks because I have that revenue to play with now to scale my own business, to have more impact, to help more people. And then when you're there, you're going to be able to strategize for yourself. If you're relaxed in your plan and you're intentional with your energy, you're going to be able to have a look and read the room and know what extra service you can offer to the same people that have already invested in your offer.
Yeah, absolutely. You just nailed a few different possibilities. And this is why it's so important to have that strategy in place, right? And to really understand what is the purpose of my events, and to have, a back end offer to be able to offer them at the next step, to see it as either offering the next step or giving them a taste of your work so that they enter into your world and, leave a fan of your brand, to build community around your brand, right? These are all like powerful ways.
And referrals. Then you do have
like
third-party credibility. Who doesn't want to go to an event that their other friend said, oh my God, you need to get a ticket. The next time that rolls into town, you have your name on that. That's how it is. It's actually like almost an old school way of marketing, because it's face-to-face now. It's not online.
Yeah. And I just, obviously I'm biased, but I'm a really firm believer that the magic that you can create in real life, face to face, in a room with people with shared energy and presence, it's just unique. It's just
It's
not,
unmatched. Yeah, I could not agree more.
it's unmatched.
Yeah.
It's unmatched, and it's so, so, so powerful. So that could be another really powerful reason behind events, is so that you can deliver your most potent and powerful high level work in person, in real life, with your clients, with your community.
Yeah, I'm so down for that. And I think the other topic that I wanted to touch on as well was marketing. Because when we're clear on our messaging, we know how to fit that into our copy. And they're very different things. Obviously, when we're talking about our messaging, that's the reason why we're doing things, and the emotions and like the topics that we want to focus on. But then our copy is really, is it long form? Is it short form? Is it in the format of a video? Are we doing something with our email marketing there? So what type of strategic decisions could you recommend to people that are trying to run events, add it, or expand on them in their business?
Yeah, definitely. It really depends on the business owner and what they're already doing, right? I'm a fan of doing the things that you're already doing, that are already working for you. Um, and also really looking at your unique business situation and audience, right? So if you have a small list, if you're newer in your business journey, I would recommend like a smaller, more intimate event. If you have a really big, warm list of people that are always ready to buy for you, then you can go with a larger event, right? So like the first thing is being ambitious, but also realistic in terms of what is the right size event to start. Because another mistake that I see people make is, they overshoot. They overshoot in terms of how many people they want to have at their events, and then they're struggling a bit, right? They're challenged. They're kind of scrambling to sell the tickets that they want. And the strategy that I always like to offer is start small, aim big. Like have the big picture in mind as like the end game, but start small, a size that makes sense for you, for your list, for your audience, for your brand, for your business, wherever it's at the moment, a number that feels really good to you that you can execute against confidently. Deliver an epic experience. That for me is my number one marketing strategy. Like deliver an epic experience. Over deliver, make it absolutely incredible. Focus on building tribe and community so that people walk away and they're like, wow, that was absolutely incredible. They're sharing photos, they're telling their friends, they're coming back to your next event. That for me is really at the core of this. And then of course, we talk social media strategy, email marketing strategy, if you want to do paid ads, referrals, like we talk all about that stuff. But for me, the first few things that I mentioned are really essential to start there.
Yeah. And it sounds almost like the same or similar message to what I always brag on about, and I go on about it and on about it, is authenticity, integrity, and transparency. So when we're talking about those as values to an event or as part of an event, it's just easy for people to grab it energetically and to understand what the offer is, because you know yourself and you know your parameters that you're working within, and you've set yourself these boundaries. And like you said, you've kind of got to have that balance between realistic and this is my dream, everything's going to be amazing. And it will challenge your mindset. There's also this phase that I've even experienced in my life with events, is that you kind of get to promoting and promoting and promoting. It does plateau. And you need to persist in that energy and that frequency of this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, even while it hasn't really manifest right in front of your eyes. You might not have sold all your tickets and you still have like 3 weeks left. And then you're like, oh, how am I going to make that happen? And with any event that I've ever experienced, that happens. But if you have a shaky or wobbly mindset around that experience and you don't have experience with that, I know I've said that word. Everyone take a shot every time I say experience. Says the girl who doesn't even drink. But yeah, it's just part of the package and part of the mindset to understand that it's not always going to look exactly as you'd expected, which we touched on at the beginning of this amazing episode. Was really things can kind of just go totally way off what you were even hoping for sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's part of the excitement and challenge of live events is like anything can happen and you got to be prepared pretty much
Yeah.
for anything. But yeah, I think this is why, just like in any program that, that can happen as well, that, you launch and it's kind of like, where are the people? And you have to keep that internal anchoring and belief and follow through and keep your foot on the gas. It's no different than events. And I find, similar to whether it's an online program or the event, that's why I always come back to like that initial vision and that initial intention and your reason of why you're doing this event, right? Because when you can see that vision and that experience so clearly, and you really know what you want people to get out of it, what they're going to walk away from, what the vibe and experience is going to be there, you can really speak to that with conviction, right? Like with conviction, with excitement, with enthusiasm of like, listen, this is going to be a potentially life-changing event, right? Like if that's the intention that you're setting, like people are not going to walk out of this the same person as they walked in, then you have the ability to transmit that through your promotion, through your marketing. And it's true, and it's an integrity, it's in total alignment with what your vision for that event is.
Yeah, and truth. It's something that's coming from your own soul and what your business blueprint looks like and what it's calling you into that highest version of yourself when you're amplifying, all right, this is what I know and this is what I want, but it definitely has to collide at some point for us to have that clear communication with ideal and dream clients. And I think that today we have just offered so much value and there's a lot of things to talk about, but tell us what your Instagram handle is again. Where can we find you? And what is this program that you actually sell?
Yes. So my Instagram is Tanya Lopez. So you can find me there, and I'm sharing a lot more about the work that I'm doing and my current offers at the moment. So at the moment, there's a few ways to work with me. One is in a 6-week accelerator, which is designed to help you create events as transformational and profitable as possible. For me, it's really essential to merge those two. So that's in the works. It's called the Epic Events Accelerator. And then there's also the opportunity to work with me one-to-one, to really get my experience in your business at a very deep, close level. Both of them are incredible offers. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to me and, we can have a little chat to see if one of those is a good fit for where you're at.
Follow, subscribe, send us some reviews for this podcast episode, and make sure, ladies, that you share this with anyone else that you think it might benefit, because there's always something to be said about collaboration and community. And I think that we've also driven that home, even just talking about events today. And I'm just really grateful, Tanya, that you've been able to share your expertise and give little tips and hints. There were so many questions in that people can really squeeze a lot of juice and make that beautiful margarita that they're going to be having at their retreat, whether it's international or like, it's just exciting. I love events and I love your vibes that you've been offering up on your Facebook and your Instagram. So everyone check her out. And I'm going to wrap it up and say goodbye for an episode of Strategy and Soul, the podcast with Danikah Rose Creative. Thanks so much, Tanya.
Thanks so much for having me.